Richa Singh. I head the Natural Diamond Council for the whole area of India and the Middle East. I represent NDC, which is the Natural Diamond Council. We are a not-for-profit body, and the whole attempt is how can we work with the industry bodies, retailers, designers, everybody together, and grow the industry such that the consumer feels empowered to be able to buy our category and enjoy our category. So we've had the first session today of what we are calling the Diamond Dialogue with every part of the supply chain in our industry to say how can we discuss what are the challenges we are facing, what we can do to address them. It was the first open dialogue where different points of view, a little bit of discussion, argument on what is happening, how we can together work, cure, increase the knowledge. You are a country which is called the Gold City, and we would like to make sure that Dubai becomes a diamond destination. So we have collaborated with the Dubai Jewelry Group. The idea is to create a dialogue, come up with action points that we can take to make the industry better. So just too pertinent, we also had a gentleman, Mr. Musa, who represented the consumer affairs and fair trade practice for the government, and he also shared his point of view on how Dubai can become the hub. And the idea was to come up with guidelines, maybe marketing guidelines of what the consumer sees, terminology guidelines of how natural diamonds, lab-grown diamonds are discussed, and make sure that how we work in a cohesive manner. There are two parallel categories. How can we develop two categories in a healthy manner so that Dubai becomes a hub where people travel here to buy natural diamond jewelry?
What are the benefits you're expecting for these
consumers?
Yeah.
So the big challenge for us today, and you mentioned challenge in the industry, is that there was a time when the consumer came to the jeweler. The jeweler is the most trusted partner that they have. It's almost like an extension of the family. Here's the good news in the family first, plans the wedding literally with you first. And times have changed where there's a lot of information coming from the digital world, coming from outside sources. Initially you had your family, your best friend and your jeweler. Today you have all the outside information that is coming. How does the consumer match both? So I have to make sure I'm at par with the consumer's knowledge, and my staff is at par, my teams know more, can add value to the consumer, so the consumer can make a very knowledgeable, thought out decision. And we are not here to make choices for the consumer or dictate buy this. The consumer today is empowered enough, knowledgeable enough, is the ability to check facts. So wants to know how can they make the best decision. So our role as an industry is how do we give them the knowledge and the power. And I think it starts from us being aligned as an industry. And the second is how do our teams, which are actually in the shop floor, be knowledgeable so they can pass on the information. The next big challenge is the consumer today is aware of what is happening across the world because they are traveling, and especially Dubai is an example of, it's a melting pot of so many cultures that you have every nationality that visits here. So how do you talk to a person who comes from India, comes from Russia, comes from Africa, comes from the US, but you need to talk to all. So how is my team ready to talk to all? So one common factor, their knowledge across the world, social media travels across. But second is how do you speak to this global citizen? And that is what has changed over the years. You had a particular region, now you have the global consumer who's traveled a lot, seen a lot. So knowledge is the key, and we as an industry have discussed how we can make the knowledge common so all our teams are at par. Second, how do we quicken the pace of disseminating this knowledge to across. You are one of the largest tourism hubs, and your teams are some of the largest custodians of categories, and especially with engagement with the tourists. And this is the need of the hour, knowledge and information sharing.
What the effect behind with the gold prices jumping with diamond?
Yes, so gold prices is been a challenge throughout. It's been a challenge for the footfall. Positive is, of course, that we continue to show that fine jewelry has a place to stay. It's a great investment. What has worked for us is that the consumer who used to buy only pure gold jewelry, 21 carat or 22 depending on which region, is today considering studded jewelry, because nobody is looking at 18 carat pure gold, so they're looking at studded jewelry. So it's a huge potential for natural diamond, and we are seeing first time buyers coming from smaller towns, coming from cities where they're exploring studded jewelry, and diamonds are getting into households that we've never been in before. So it's, in a way, it's a positive for us. The challenge for us is how we maintain our quality design, craft, and like I said, knowledge. We have to stay relevant. Today, my distraction is a new gadget that comes out in the industry. Distraction is a new restaurant that opens, a new city you want to travel to and see the world, but which are momentary. And here you have a product which is going to last forever, and you're probably inherited and you're going to leave behind. Now, how do we express, make it fashionable enough for today and value enough for leaving behind? So we are a great combination of fashion, emotional value, and you have generational value, because this is the only category you leave behind, and holds value. Okay?
Can you tell us about the impact of the lab-grown diamond on the natural diamond? Because now it's too much in the market,
Yes.
and people are going towards it because it's cheaper.
So, when it started, lab-grown started, they were a much higher priced product, and we were told, so going back 2 steps, lab-grown diamonds came out in the 50s. They were produced by GE, was the first one who came out. De Beers used to be the largest manufacturer of lab-grown diamonds till very recent times, and it was used for industrial purposes, for surgeries, technology product. It wasn't in fine jewelry. It came into fine jewelry 25 years ago roughly, and it started as a great value product. Now, because it's a mass-produced product, there is so much production of it that the value has dropped, and the value has dropped very dramatically. So today we were just checking on Walmart, a 3 carat lab-grown diamond, single piece, is sold for $183. So it is not a competition for fine jewelry. So we think that there are 2 parallel categories. Both have huge potential, both will grow. We are a country which likes accessories. We all wear, whether it's Dubai, whether it's India, the whole region loves jewelry as such. And we have to make sure that, they understand what is momentary, what is for a long term. So we believe that diamonds, natural diamonds, which are a billion-year-old product, one of a kind, are for special occasions. When you're getting married, you know that you can leave it behind for your child. You'll wear it for 50 years, 60 years and leave it behind, and it still doesn't erode in value. And we believe lab-grown will be a fashion accessory, a more fun, quirky, new thing, which is, you can take designs which are not available, cuts which are not available in natural diamonds. They could be a fun, impulsive thing that you buy today, and you're not worried if it gets lost, if it's value, because it's now become an extremely accessible product. So for us on the other side, we believe that the confusion starts from the retail environment. So online, the prices have crashed. When you see the retailers, you say, oh, will it look similar? So we keep saying that, today a fake Rolex, a first copy of a bag is so similar that you don't come to know what the difference is. But whether you're wearing a real Rolex or a fake Rolex. And it's the same as this. So it's not like you shouldn't wear it. You can choose to wear, but one is for something which holds meaning. If you want to have an engagement ring which you're going to wear every day for the rest of your life, you want something which holds value, and it's one of a kind. A mass-produced product is, the minute everybody has the same thing, everybody. So I think there are 2 categories. One is not, it's a very internal thing that the industry has started this year. Also in Dubai, in this region, lab-grown diamonds from coming to now, in 2.5, 3 years, the price collapse has happened. So there's a lot of confusion in the B2B retail space also, and the consumer's mind. And because it's happened so quickly, unlike say the US where the journey was much slower. So that's why in Dubai we feel that the focus should be on knowledge and awareness. So do they look alike? Yes. Can they, you can test them? Yes. So there is today the machines are of such fantastic quality. Within seconds you can know which one. If I put a bangle today, they can tell you which stone is or which is not. Everything is 100% identifiable to see which is natural, which is not. In seconds. All of the big stores are carrying detection machines with them. So it's instantaneous.
But without machine, you cannot make difference. So
Most
normal consumer,
normal eye you will not. Like I said, today, the quality of fakes also, or first copy bags, or nobody will know. But, maybe the experts, but a common eye will not come to know the difference. But of course, it's with a machine, it's instant, in seconds. It's not even like a long term, you need to send it in, no such thing. So all legitimate jewelers carry certificates for their jewelry. Initially, jewelry only loose stone could be checked. Now set jewelry can be checked. Anything which is laid out, big sets, earrings, anything can be checked. So now legitimate jewelers have certificates. They also have machines in their places. You can check it live and see it in front of your eyes. Lab-grown diamonds used to have certificates. GIA, as of a couple of months ago, has said that, when you're typing in and saying this is the quality I want, then what are we testing? See, a natural diamond comes from Mother Earth. You don't know whether I'm getting this or this. So you have a certificate. But when you know what you're asking for, then why do you need? So they have created saying that they will not have the 4 C's, for instance. The GIA system now has certificates which says there's premium and standard, I think, if I'm not. There's 2 qualities, There's a good quality or an average quality product, and this is what we are going to do. So they've changed the look certification, saying that a mass-produced item and one which takes such a long journey, billions years to come, cannot be the same. The one oldest piece of history you can ever own is a diamond. Which other thing is a billion-year-old that you can ever inherit or own? So you are actually getting a piece of history. You're adding your own history and stories to it when you pass to your child. So now your child remembers something that was said, then my mama did this and now it's mine. So every diamond gets a story added to it. And we believe that's the reason, you're ready to pay that premium, because it's something so precious and it's an heirloom which you're leaving behind. No pant or no fashion thing is going to be living 200 years later and saying, oh, 6 people did. So it's something that cannot be compared. But does it have a place? Of course it does. And it's our job as an industry body to say, share the facts and the information with the consumer. The consumer decides what her pocket allows her, what she wants in terms of design, whether she wants, what moment she wants it for, and how important it is. But the decision is hers, it's not mine. And there's no right or wrong. I keep saying that I was drawing a parallel from fashion. And I can wear a Gucci and I can wear H&M and Zara. There is no right or wrong. I enjoy this as much as I enjoy this. But Gucci doesn't go out and say, oh, white shirt. If every brand has a white shirt, and when you're wearing a white shirt, can you tell the difference? Unless there's a logo, you cannot tell a difference. So does that mean one shouldn't keep the white shirt and only one brand should? No. It's every brand has its own place. And Gucci is not worried that, oh, Zara is doing what Zara is not worried that Gucci is doing. Both are growing and both are thriving and both the stores are filled. So I think that as long as you can explain your story, the consumer is ready to buy and justify the pricing for it.
Okay, as a customer, they have here special how I'll tell you, opinion about diamonds. They will say, why I will pay too much for a diamond ring, for example, and if I want to sell it, I will just put it on the way.
you lose much.
They will give me just the amount of the gold. So how you will convince the people? No, what you are wearing is price. It has
Jewelry.
price its own.
Yeah. So this is a thing that I must say some of the retailers are doing today. The largest retailer, I think they are in the top 2 or 3 in the world. Malabar was sitting there and they said they have started a promise where they are saying 100% resale value of even their diamond jewelry. Their own. They will buy back their own. And there's a 100% buyback. And there was a very big debate amongst the retailers as to why they should or shouldn't be. But again, I come back to say that you have a car, you drive out of the showroom, it's depreciated by 20% or 30%. It's in 30 minutes, or 3 minutes. The minute you drive out, you lose that money. Here is a category I'm saying, if I bought it for 100, and I bought it when my daughter was born, and my daughter's going to turn 18 now. Every day, if I worn it for 18 years, can I go back and even if I get 100, is it not good value? Even if it's not grown, it's generational value.
Yeah.
And people tend to compare it and say, is it an investment? But I didn't buy it as an investment. I bought it as a memory, a reminder that I have a daughter. And when I look at it, I don't think, oh, its value is this much. When I go to sell it, what is this? I think, oh, my daughter was born. She's so precious to me. And when she gets married, should I give it to her? The memories are different. So when we are selling natural diamonds, we are saying we are selling your dream, we are selling your joy. You look at a piece of jewelry, don't you smile? Yes, that's what I'm saying. So, which mutual fund do you look at and smile? So, what you're underestimating is that no jeweler is sitting there and saying that come buy this as an investment product. We are selling your product to enjoy, but God forbid you have a problem, you can also sell it. It holds value. So even if I'm saying nothing changes, and I'm not debating that diamond price has fallen, but if, in the last data that we have published, in the last 11 years, diamond price on an average is up 3%. Okay? Standard round brilliant pricing is 3% up. But you've worn it for those 11 years. But what other category can you say it for? No shoe is not going to last. Which category is going to last? Real estate is the only thing that I can think of which as a category. Even if you do paintings and art, some will work, some will not. Some will become higher price, some it's not. But you buy it because you enjoy it. So our category, I keep saying, is not an investment product. We are an emotional value, a generational value, but we also, God forbid you need to sell, we also have value in it. Every brand has a different buyback policy, but most of the industry has a buyback policy, and on their own. The problem is that if a consumer buys from X and wants to sell it at Y, they say, oh, for gold I get a pricing and diamond I don't. And that agrees because there is no two diamond pieces alike. So the value I put for it, and the retailer wants you to come back to their own store, so gives you a better deal.
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you so much.
Of course. Have I convinced you to go out and buy a diamond?
I have